بار آمد که ما افغان فیلم رو در میدیم، فیلم میلمش مکمل در میدیم. گفتن که فیلم جایی که هست هر قدری که فیلم هست کلش بکشید، اگر یک برنامه فیلم برای بابا جان.
فیلم ما همیشه تاریخ مصور کشور ما بوده. از یک طرف فیلم می ساختیم، از یک طرف هم برای سینما سازندگی می کردیم.
My first question is in relation to the idea of the film, because you have previously touched upon Afghan culture and Afghan society before in your previous films. How did you come up with this idea of showing history of Afghanistan, like contemporary history of Afghanistan?
Well, you know, my father's from Afghanistan. I was born in Canada, but my father was born in Herat and then lived in Kabul for some time. And I grew up hearing his stories of Afghanistan, and you know, in a way, my heart was always in Afghanistan because I was really raised on my father's stories and his pride of his country. But I never had any visual evidence of Afghanistan. I never, you know, all of my father's photographs were left behind when he came to Canada. Eventually they were burned, and I never had that visual connection. I was always hungry for that, you know. And so I think in some ways, you know, when I went to Afghanistan for the first time in 2005, I was looking for that visual connection to the country. And I felt really called to tell stories about Afghanistan through film, through the medium of film. Now, when I was there making documentaries, I made a few documentaries there. What I was doing in a way was contemporary, was documenting the contemporary Afghanistan, but I was always looking for the past as well, because those were the times when my father was in Afghanistan, but also because I wanted to know what Afghanistan was like before the conflict, you know?
That's right.
To go back in time to see what life was like there before violence was so common in the country, had become an everyday occurrence, and see what Afghan culture had been like before that conflict. So when I met engineer Latif for the first time at the Afghan Film studio, I was really fascinated by the idea that there was this big cultural institution that had been tasked with making Afghan cinema. And I began to talk to him about it and have a conversation with him about it. And eventually he showed me some of the films. The first film that he showed me was Akhtar Maskara, which is Akhtar the Joker, which is this black and white film based on a novel. And it's about class privilege. And it's a kind of satirical story about a young man who wants to be part of the upper class until he realizes tragically that he will never be, because there is no social mobility. And it's just such a good film that I was instantly hooked on Afghan cinema, and I wanted to know more and more. And the more I found out, the more I wanted to share it with the rest of the world and say, look, this is a chapter of world history that you don't know about. This is a face of Afghanistan that you haven't seen. This is, you know, this whole legacy of visual evidence of life and culture in Afghanistan that's completely different from what we've seen through the lens of Western cameras. So I wanted to do that. I also feel like it's a contribution in some sense. You know, what I mean is the archive is a contribution to history, including the history of the Cold War, very global implications, you know, from a different perspective. And so it does have relevance to audiences, I think, around the world.
Excellent. So from your understanding of Afghan cinema, has there been any precedent of any filmmaker who wanted to do what you did actually, to document Afghan contemporary history and cinema, or your work is like the first or like novel work in this area?
So through the process, because it was a long process, I started thinking about this idea in 2012, started producing it in 2015. It was a 5-year production. But through the process, I became aware of a couple of other films that had touched on the archive itself. So there were other films that touched on the themes and showed the archive and showing some of the films, but they were all very specific. The other films were specific about, you know, this person or this moment or this this particular thing. And so what I wanted to do was really give time and pay homage and give respect to Afghan cinema as a body of work, and tell this story in a way that was both dramatic but also left enough space for people to just see the work that's in the archive and be transported back in time. And that hadn't been done. I mean, nobody had done sort of a comprehensive story about Afghan cinema. And so I felt it was crucial to do that. You know, there's about 50 feature films, give or take, in the archive. And in addition to that, there's some documentaries, and then there's an enormous amount of newsreel, like documentary footage, in the form of newsreels and rushes that were shot for newsreels. So just strict documentation. And that material is so vast. I wanted to give a sense of that and use it to tell the story of Afghan history. So you start all the way back with the very first footage that was shot. It's footage of Amanullah Khan, one of Afghanistan's kings, and he's on an official visit to Egypt. And that's the first piece of the earliest piece of footage that you can find in the archive. And then go all the way up to the last piece of footage, which, you know, so it travels through the monarchy period, through the Republican period, in the 70s, through the communist period from the end of the 70s through the 80s. And I have to go, there's somebody at my door. I think it's a delivery. Can I come back 1 second?
Of course. Yeah,
1 second. So to go all the way through Afghan history from the 20th century, you know, since the advent of film, since film was available in Afghanistan, from the monarchy period through the Republican government of Daoud Khan, and then through the communist period, all through the 80s, and then the civil war in the 90s. And then, of course, the last piece of footage is after the Taliban have entered Kabul, and you see ex-president Dr. Najib being hanged by the neck, and in this extraordinary act of aggression and violence. And that's the last piece of footage that you see, and after that it's just black.
I see.
And so I wanted to tell that story through the films and through the stories of the filmmakers, so that it would be history through the lens of the filmmakers. So telling at one and the same time their story, the story of the industry, and the story of Afghan history through their eyes.
Excellent. So you actually brought up a couple of names like Akhtar the Joker and Engineer Latif. So I really enjoyed the movie as well, being Iranian and seeing like Afghan history. So I wanted to know, like, how did you connect with all these personnel or filmmakers from Afghan cinema, Sadiq Barmak or other ones? Like, did you have to go through your networks or like family members, or like because it seems like it's a difficult job?
Well, I mean, I had lived in Afghanistan between 2008 and 2012 when I was making other documentary films, like The Boxing Girls of Kabul. And when I produced this film, it was Kashi Boys, and I also produced for TV and commercial, and you know, I was kind of just living there to experience the country, to learn my father's language of Dari, and also to do as much film work as I could. And as I was living there, I met most of these people. You know, every time I would meet somebody who was a filmmaker, an Afghan filmmaker, I would invite them over. We would have dinner. We would show each other films. Although Sadiq Barmak, when I met him, you know, he's kind of the senior figure of the Afghan cinema in some ways. At least at that point in Afghanistan, he was the most internationally successful filmmaker who had worked in Afghanistan and, you know, without having left the country. And I met him, and you know, I had so much respect for him, and he was so lovely to meet. And you know, I remember sitting and drinking coffee with him, and you know, asking him about his life and discussing different projects together that we work on together. But he never told me what you know, really his life story. And so what happened was I knew Engineer Latif very well because he was the president of Afghan Film and I was a filmmaker in Afghanistan. And as an Afghan, you know, Canadian, as an Afghan citizen, I felt like I had to really get to know him because, you know, you were really supposed to work with Afghan film if you were a filmmaker in the country. Of course, most foreign filmmakers didn't bother to because there was no enforcement really. I always was jumping through all the hoops because out of sense of, I guess, responsibility of being Afghan citizen as well, and just wanting to do everything right. So I knew him well, but I couldn't just tell the story through Engineer Latif. I knew he was the right person to start the story because his life is like more than any other Afghan filmmaker epitomizes the story of the Afghan film because he was twice the president of Afghan film. He probably made more feature films there than anyone else. He's definitely the most well-known in Afghanistan inside of this. And so I knew that but the thing is that during the communist period, you know, he was really making films the whole time, and he was walking this very fine line. Like he was never a member of the Communist Party, and he definitely flirted with you know, supporting the Mujahideen group that was led by Ahmed Shah Massoud. Like he wrote to him expressing his support, but he lived inside communist bubble, and he became a cultural figure within that regime. So he was supported by the regime in many ways. So even though he objects to the crimes that the regime carried out, he was a, you know, a beneficiary of the regime's largesse, so to speak. So he he couldn't be the only person, you know. I needed to tell the other side of the story, and I thought to myself, I know there must be filmmakers who knew Latif before and then went to the mountains, so to speak, you know, who went and fought on the side of the Mujahideen. I knew that would exist, and so it was just a matter of finding out who that was. And very quickly I discovered that the best person to tell that side of the story was Sadiq. He had exactly that story. You know, he was Latif's protege. He was his student and his employee, and he worked under him for years. He learned how to make films initially under him, and then he went to Moscow and studied in film school there, and then he came back to Kabul and tried to work as a filmmaker like Latif under the communist regime. But the thing is that he was from the Panjshir, and at that time there was suspicion towards Panjshiris in some cases because Ahmed Shah Massoud's forces had such a good network of insurgents both inside and outside of the city, and he found himself unable to make cinema, and so he escaped with a couple of actor friends who were also Panjshiris to the Panjshir Valley, and they joined the struggle with Massoud's forces. So you have these two filmmakers on opposite sides of the front line, and they are still best friends, and they're still sending films back and forth to each other. So you have insurgents in the mountains, Mujahideen fighters in the mountain, were watching films that were made in communist Kabul and enjoying them. And, you have letters being sent back and forth. So, that just turned out to be the right way to tell the story. And that allowed me to then transition into the 90s, because what happened was extraordinary. Latif had by then become the president of Afghan film under the communist regime. But when the Mujahideen forces, funded by America and Saudi Arabia, it's a familiar story if people were watching TV back in the 80s, if people are old enough. Then they came and they overthrew the forces, the communist forces that were hanging on in Kabul. And when that happened, the first forces to enter the city were Masoud's forces, and with them came Sadiq Barmak. And so Sadiq Barmak took the place of Engineer Latif as the head of Afghan film, and Latif fled back to Russia, eventually into Russia, first to Central Asia, to Tajikistan. And when there was a civil war there, he ended up in Moscow. So that just, it seemed like their lives in some ways reflected the political changes that were happening, the danger and uncertainty and risk and change. And so that was the perfect way to tell the story, was through their friendship. And then, the other characters in some ways come in to the story through them, because Yasemin Armal was this incredible actress who's still working today. She has the longest career of any actress in Afghanistan. Really, really passionate, really resilient actress. And she worked with Engineer Latif. And then you have Yusuf Jan Nassar, who was this incredible cameraman who worked from the time he was about 16 years old as a frontline cameraman for Ahmed Shah Massoud. And, he took the place of his boss, who was killed in action, and he saw many of his colleagues killed, and he was one of the lucky ones who survived. And so he was able to shoot for many years, and he accumulated 5,000 hours of footage, which he keeps in a personal archive, and has literally guarded at the point of a gun, because, of course, all of this stuff is political. All of the material that was produced during conflict is political, because it can show war crimes, among other things. So, this material is very special. Much of the material that we have in the film has never been seen before. And they were the right characters to tell that story.
Excellent. So just one question about one of the dialogues that really stuck with me. If I'm not mistaken, this question was asked from Engineer Latif. Basically, as you were saying about whether you joined the Communist Party of Afghanistan. And he said in a very ironic way that I joined the cinema party instead of the Communist Party. And Sidi Barmak. Yeah. So, what was your take on this? Because this, to me, is a very, very political statement, and basically puts cinema on top of politics.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? I think that hasn't been fully explored. I mean, what are the politics of cinema? Does it have any politics in and of itself? I mean, for these guys, one thing that you notice on a very basic level is they were so in love with cinema that they put cinema before politics. So Latif, I really believe that even though he sincerely, I believe, objected to what the communist regime was doing, he put that aside because he was able to make cinema, and he put cinema first. And Sadiq Barmak, he went and studied in the Soviet Union, even though he was fiercely opposed to what they were doing in Afghanistan. And again, it was just, he hated what the Soviet Union was doing, but he loved the Soviet Union's filmmakers, right? He loved Tarkovsky and the others who he mentions in the film. So he went and did that. And even the forces of Ahmed Shah Massoud, they knew that this filmmaker had studied in Moscow, many people studied under the Soviet Union. I mean, in a way, that's even more political than it sounds, because one of the ways that officers in Afghanistan were indoctrinated in the first place, the reason why there was a coup in a certain way, was because of these kind of work study. These officers would go and do trainings in the Soviet Union. They would be indoctrinated. They would come back. They sort of built a network, and that's one of the ways that people were indoctrinated into communism in Afghanistan, and one of the reasons, indirectly, why there was a communist coup. So, but I think even more important is also important to understand that in Afghanistan, like, ideology is sort of never the sole motivation. I think it very rarely is ideology kind of the sole motivation for something, especially if you're talking about Afghan people. I mean, there are many actors in Afghanistan who aren't Afghan. I'm not one of those people who says that Pakistan is behind everything or whatever, but there of course, there are forces in Afghanistan during the communist period. There were Soviet advisors during the Mujahideen period. Of course, there were foreign fighters who were still in the country. During the Taliban period, there were many foreign fighters in the country, and they have an influence. And so, they have an influence. But I think when you talk about Afghan people, it's very rare that ideology is the sole motivation for any action, because tribal and family, which means family and friendship bonds, are so powerful, and respect for culture is also really goes deep, and so that's why, as we talk about in the film, there was a Taliban official who helped save the films from being burned by the Taliban, and that's why there's Mujahideen watching communist films, and that's why you have all of these allegiances that can exist across enemy lines.
Excellent. So two more questions, very, very interesting so far. One is in relation to the financing of the film. So, because when I was looking at the credit, I noticed that National Film Board of Canada has been a partner. Was it very difficult to finance this movie? Did you have any support from any Afghan Canadian, or can you explain a little bit more about? Yeah.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, no, it was a kind of a typical Canadian production in terms of the financing structure. It was kind of a typically Canadian production. It was difficult to finance. We had a rather large budget in order to do all of the research and get all of the films that we needed and do the digitization that we needed. It required, and all of the travel, of course, it required a good-sized budget. And so it did take us a while to raise it. You're here in Canada, the way you finance films, usually the majority is public funds. And that comes through tax credits and investments, public investments. And, but in order to be eligible for that, you need broadcast money. And so we were very lucky to have TV Ontario come on board, as well as Radio Canada, Knowledge Network, and RTV, which is an arts-based channel here in Quebec. And, and then the National Film Board came on board, which was really great, because the National Film Board, really in some ways is like a sister organization to Afghan film. So it was really the most appropriate organization to be part of the film. Of course, the main production company is Loaded Pictures, which is a private documentary production company here in Montreal, which is run by Sergio Kirby, who is a producer, wonderful producer. And but the National Film Board has all of this expertise in digitization, because they also have a massive archive that goes back to the 60s and before. And they understood very well the challenge that Afghan film was facing in terms of wanting to digitize and preserve their incredible legacy. And so, we really owe them a debt of gratitude for being there to contribute expertise. And in particular, I feel so grateful to the technicians at the National Film Board, the people who work behind the scenes, who were able to really go above and beyond to help us to digitize all of the material that we needed. So it was really a lot of different sources of funding, and we did receive some donation as well. Yeah, so it was very, and when you talk about the film coming together, I mean, we really could not have made this film without the cooperation of Afghan film and all of the Afghan artists and filmmakers who gave us their stories and informed me, because there's no written history of this, so I had to get everything from word of mouth. And people were very generous with their time. Research for this film was very interesting because there's no catalog. So you really, if you want to watch films from Afghan film, you have to go into the archive and sit down and order up films reel by reel, and then spool them onto a projector.
Wow.
Well, of course, the projectionist does that, and then watch them one by one on the screen, and it's incredibly time consuming. And because there's no catalog, you really rely on the memory of the archivists, the kind of encyclopedic memories of these archivists who have dedicated their entire lives to this one collection of films. And so that's the money, and also, I also would always add to the money that was spent. You have to put beside that all of the things that we receive for free. The expertise that we receive for free, the contributions from all of the Afghan artists and technicians who gave their time. So that was incredibly important. And I don't know if you know this aspect of the film, but we shot recreations of some of the stories of the Afghan filmmakers on 16 millimeter in Afghanistan. And we shot them in order to make them match with the body of work of the archive. Now, there isn't a lot of it. It's just little shots here and there. And I did shoot that in order that it would kind of seamlessly interweave with the archival material, because already you had a kind of a complex structure with this film. You're going from contemporary back in time, and we're using the archives in different ways. We're using them quite literally to show Afghan cinema. We're using them a little bit more abstractly to show Afghan history, and then we're using them in a completely metaphorical way to help illustrate the stories of the filmmakers' lives, right? And so we're using this archive in a bunch of complicated ways, but we didn't want it to feel like a complicated film. We wanted to feel seamless. And so when we were adding the recreations, in order to have more visual material to support the stories of the filmmakers' lives, we wanted to shoot it in a way that would seamlessly cut into the archival material. And so that's what we did. We used 16 millimeter film, which is not done very often anymore, especially not in a place like Afghanistan. We used the equipment of Afghan film. We used the crew of Afghan film. We used Afghan actors. We shot on the kind of backlot of Afghan film. We shot right on Afghan film property on the yard, and inside the archive as well. And and that's how we did that. And I think it works very well. It is sort of seamless. Sharp eye can often pick out which of those are created by us, but they're there. And if you want to know which ones they are, look for the widescreen shots, because a lot of the Afghan cinema and a lot of the historical shots in the archive are 4:3 ratio, and ours are anamorphic 16:9. And so if you look for those widescreen shots, if it's not obviously from an Afghan film, it could have been one of the shots that we made. And that was really interesting. It was a kind of homage to to the Afghan filmmakers, and we shot it hand in hand with them.
Perfect. Fascinating. So as the last question, I want to ask about your future projects. Any film idea about, again, Afghanistan? Can you kind of elaborate for our viewers, or any final words if you have?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a fiction script. It's about, it's set in Afghanistan, I can say. And it's a kind of a minimalist drama, and I'm hoping that after the pandemic, when it's safe to shoot this film, that I'll be back in Afghanistan once more.